This is Jeremy Zwinger at the Rice Traders, summarizing the May 20th TRT report. As always, a great pleasure to be here as we walk through the world rice market and talk about the key things occurring in the various regions. And ironically, I thought this week was going to be a slower week. We had gotten back from our Asia trip. Figured the market would have been tempered a bit, and my thoughts about this market were wrong. It actually has heated up pre-blue log tender, which is coming next week, which he announced through a flash update early last week. And just, some of the things we've been reporting the Rice Trader really caught on. We said the Brazilian floods were going to increase the amount of imports. It's definitely did. And already vessels on the water, vessels arriving to Brazil. And that's kind of really what spiced the market up. But mostly would think, okay, look, we're just waiting for a blue log tender. Things aren't going to be too active. And that was not the case. In fact, Thai prices jumped up to 630. We call it up to 25, $35 a ton this week. That's a big jump in a week. It just shows the action, how the layers of this market are coming together as they're going into next week's blue log tender. Vietnam's only $600, Pakistan $595, and we call India GAD trade about $570 today, just really being about $30 below the market from what we hear. Though it's a guess price. I mean, it could be 510, just depending on who you are and how it all works out. So a very, very interesting market. Now this leads us into the blue log tender. What's going to happen? Well, Thai at these prices, even though it's slotted to get 90,000 tons, blue log could do what they do before. They could threaten no offers, threaten to not buy, give that tonnage to Vietnam or Pakistan at these levels. I can tell you they're going to want best levels close to last tender, and they are going to probably get them on this tender. And Vietnam was very cheap last tender. Thailand wasn't, but we do hear that some of the players had tough time covering rice for that last tender. That was CNF much lower than values in this. So there may be some sorts in the market still. And paddy acquisition costs they're telling me is probably equal to 620 right now. So that's the break-even paddy cost for recoverment rice, recoverment stocks. So it's a wild market. It's going to be very interesting what blue log does. And it's the same time as Brazilian stuff's going on. We tracked 4, now up to 6 vessels that have been sold from Thailand. As we said, it's going to be about 2 million tons, 1.2 million from Latin America, and the rest probably from a little bit US, 800,000 tons, US and Asia, making up that 800,000 tons that I was just speaking of. So you're definitely seeing a shift, but it doesn't really end there. If I just bounce to the next topic, this Brazilian thing has kind of opened up a push to Latin America. We see Thailand's booked in 30 to 60,000 tons to Mexico. Haiti has got another 30 to 60,000 tons of Pakistan business. This has really opened up, and especially with Brazil had oversold last year, and so they were down. This crop is really reduction on the flood is going to affect them. It's going to push in Uruguay and Argentina rice, other rices from the region that they won't be able to export to, like Guatemala, Nicaragua, Haiti. In that region, the U.S., which is a bigger crop, will have to fill in. But at $800 a ton for 2.4, wouldn't you rather buy, Vietnamese price at 600? I mean, maybe you have a $50 ton freight disadvantage, but let's say your landed cost for US is 850 and put $100 on it, 850 versus $700, $150 cheaper to buy Asian rice of very good quality. So this is what I see in the market. So there's a lot of this Latin American pressure, a lot of, Philippines is buying, NFA is now back in the game, a lot of excitement with the NFA back in the game. And you've now moved back to the Marcos administration moving back a step or 2 or 5 to the time when NFA could buy quietly and do what they do. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how that also affects the market in a time like this. Really, the group that's been very quiet is Bernas. Malaysia's secretly, quietly buying, just doing their thing. I think they have quite a good buying strategy often, much quieter, discreet movements. And that just should be recognized. There is other players buying outside of these very highlighted ones, and they're doing it discreetly, quickly, quietly. On the flip side of this, we do see India being very heavy exporter, 300,000 tons per week. It's just starting to really douse the trade in a lot of areas. We see that mostly in Pakistan, where trade went from 60,000 tons in March to 360,000 tons in April. With a lot of competition occurring in those markets that India and Pakistan would both be in. So you've kind of seen some weakness in Pakistan because of that. Like I'd seen it over the last month. They've been saying, "Oh, I kind of feel weak," and it's really coming out like that. It's this additional competition. I mean, India. If you announced that the India ban was over and the trade didn't stop, I mean, it just kept the same 330,000 tons a week, 340,000 tons a week, the market would be much lower. Well, you're already shipping it. So why isn't the market lower? It's a very, very good question. The markets are very PR driven. One could look at wheat, corn, and soybeans saying, look how cheap they are versus last year. Why isn't rice down? Markets are very PR driven, and guaranteed the growers are going to maximize production at these levels because there's not a lot of money in the major grains. You see it in the US at a minor scale, but you're going to see it throughout Latin America. You're going to see it throughout Asian countries that have this dichotomous growth of what they could put in, and maximizing with fertilizer and other things to get good crops because the overall profit is very good. So that's kind of what I see. I mean, the other surprise I would continue to say is China is now a net exporter. That is a very big deal. They've gone down to 1.5 million tons. They're exporting more than that, so they're definitely a net exporter, and that's not talked about, and it's a big, big factor. Um, I could go also to, we had a great article last week on Bangladesh. They're going to continue to be a key player. And this week we have a key article on Myanmar, along with India rice trade update. And also we reviewed the grains report from Friday of last week, just showing that USDA has, again, by far like 10 million tons decided it's going to be a record global production, and that record global production should douse the market. But that's the whole thing, is markets are very PR driven. But last year was a record at 517.3. This year's 527.6, so over a 10 million ton increase, million metric ton increase on the year. And of course, they take consumption up significantly, but the ending stocks for the first time since 2020-21 are going to increase. So that shows the market's bottom and it's going up with supplies. I think there's going to be some real problems that you're seeing with India and this China thing. The market's not seeing it in a short-term fundamentals because it's quite bullish short-term, but longer term it's not. And if you look at, again, I can only highlight so many factors. Our team, Dr. Mahatni, did such a great job highlighting these things, but you can see it even from the production that USDA is saying in the coming year. India's record 138 million metric tons. You're seeing Bulag supposedly in 2024-25, they go from 3.5 down to 1.5, more normal imports, very, 150,000 metric tons a month versus 300,000 tons a month, or less even. Maybe it's 120,000 tons a month. They're very less than half of what they're taking in now for the coming year. So you're going to see the Indonesia significantly decrease. Could go down to below a million, I think, even if they have big crops, and the monsoon season is good for Asia. So India is strong. Indonesia is going to reduce. The Philippines will continue to always take their 4 million tons, just as they always do. And these are kind of, like I said, the layered functions. Myanmar, they will do their 1.5. Cambodia will continue to export tons of rice across the border and still do their 600,000 tons. But I do see fundamental weakness against this backdrop of a lot of it depending on China and India. And people say, oh, they're carrying all the stocks. Well, between the two, they have 25% of world population. They should be carrying it, especially some of the biggest rice producers in the world. Don't be surprised if India and China don't dominate rice exports throughout the next years because of their quantity. And if you look at the report, the FCI stocks in India have dramatically gone up, and they continue to be an issue, with wheat being the exception. Wheat is down. Rice is so high, it's not even funny. It's just so high as supplies. But it just comes back to, accurately, the world's got 33.45% stock to use ratio. That's way out of line. 20% is in line with a balanced world. 15% you're super short bullish, 25% you're super excess, 30% you're ridiculously excess supply. It really comes down to what China and India do in this very, very high food supply. So on that, we also did announce the World Rice Conference will be in Philippines in the coming year. 2 surveys later, questioning of the trade, everybody kept choosing the Philippines as the trade likes. There is, of course, going to be 4 million tons bought from them next year, and the trade likes to go where the trade is, I guess. And so it will be in Manila at the Conrad Hotel. That's a beautiful hotel I just stayed at. Definitely look forward to seeing there. Of course, the Global Rice Summit is just in 3 weeks in India. Please make your hotel reservations. This could be a great time. It's first time in India. I'm just looking forward to having that first conference in India as well. So again, the team put together another amazing rice trader. The vessel list we've put over the last 4 weeks have been amazing, really giving good buyer and seller information on multiple levels, and just commend the team to their efforts. And that is a help reveal key things happening in the world trade. It's an excellent report. I mean, again, it's such a large one. It's hard to just pick out one piece, but I think we got the highlights of what we see going on in the world. Very high supply amidst some of this very public trading, keeping the market up. When at some point in time, it's going to be flush with supplies. So be very careful in this market, very, very careful. It probably can't go too much higher based on this, maybe a little bit, but it can go way lower. And you're not going to find excess demand at way lower because you have to go way, way lower to fight against the grains to get that demand. I always say, look at the California market. It is a supreme example of what can happen in rice. California rice was the highest price, 1.4 calories in the world, $1,900 a ton, and drought in between Australia and the U.S. They had very drought, low production, and now it's below long grain prices at about $790. I mean, again, it's over $1,000 drop in a year, $1,100 drop in a year. That's the biggest price change I've ever seen, and it's probably going lower. The supplies are high. Planting, as I just look out the window, it's very hot. The growers are out here planting away. This can happen in the other rice as well. And so it's a good example to watch. Not necessarily today. I mean, there's a lot of bullish players in the short term, but as he supplies, a good monsoon could wipe out any fire in the market really quick. Then again, who knows what the weather happens? I mean, we all thought Brazil was going to have a big crop, and who could have planned they were going to have heavy flooding during the midst of their harvest season. So again, so much going on. We look forward to seeing you, of course, at our conferences. The team continues to work so hard for you, and we look forward to supporting you and just continue to highlight the world rice market. With that, this is Jeremy Zwinger signing out. Look forward to speaking to you next week and reviewing the world rice market again.